Or not. I'm expecting an intro video. I didn't see it, but maybe it's my computer connection. But this is Dojo Live to Dojo Live. This August 23rd, 2023. My name is Kim Lantis, and joining me as usual is my beautiful co-host, America Guerrero.
Hey, Kim, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, we're just a little confused. There was some glitch. It's all right. It's the fallout of the nature of a live show. So, of course, the guest today, the most important person, is Shreesha Ramdas, founder and CEO of Lumber. Shreesha, thank you so much for joining us again on Dojo Live. I think this is show number 2 for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Great to meet you, Kim, America. Great to be back. I am super excited to come back on the show after a while.
Yes, thank you. And it's always fun to see what you are coming up with as a kind of serial entrepreneur here. And it's going to be a great conversation because we're talking about hacking growth opportunities and wanting to know what it's like to strike a balance between revolution and evolution, particularly when it comes to startups. But before we do, let's recap for those who might have not caught the first show. What's the Shreesha story? Please share a bit about you and your passion.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So the best way to describe myself is I'm a kid in a candy store when it comes to startups, right? So live and breathe startups. Been passionate about startups for a while. I've been doing startup myself, but I've also been investor advisor to a few startups. I think about 50 plus now. And it's been incredibly fulfilling.
Excuse the interruption. Did you say 50 or 15?
No, about 50 plus, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, thank you. So that shows again, I go back to the kid in a candy store. When it comes to startup, I just can't stop myself from participating. And the most important thing is when I'm working with other founders, it helps me stay relevant. It helps me stay young. And the reason is that the environment is changing so fast, and when you're interacting with the other founders, they keep you on your toes. They force you to learn new things, and that's why I find it so fulfilling to work with founders. So apart from that, I've been putting together a community of founders as well here in the Bay Area. So really excited about how that's shaping up. So it's basically an action group where one founder or a repeat founder, a successful founder can help other founders. So overall, it's been a lot of work with startups and founders.
I love it. I think mentorship is very important. So let's talk about the most recent endeavor. This is Lumber, lumberfi.com. What is Lumber and what is the problem that you're solving?
Yeah, and Kim, America, it's super exciting. I think this is the first public forum where I'm talking about Lumber. We are going to be launching on September 12th officially. And so I'll share a little bit about Lumber. September, by the way, the September 12th significance is we all know September 11th, what happened. And so September 12th is the day of new hope, new order coming into existence. And so it's constructing the new world, right? That's the theme that you're approaching. And Lumber is a workflows management platform for the construction industry. And so we feel like there's already so much competition when it comes to labor in the construction world, and it's going to get even more difficult. So how do you manage your workers, be it your employees, be it your contractors, your subcontractors, your suppliers? That's going to play a pivotal role in how construction industry grows from here on. And we are a solution that's working towards bringing order to chaos that exists.
I'm particularly interested in this and somewhat invested. My older brother is actually the owner of a contracting company. He builds houses. So it will be really cool. I'll have to shoot it his way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So with Lumber, I think this is probably going to be a case study, a story that you can tell, as this directly links to the topic of today's show, which again, America, will be
Hacking growth opportunities. How does striking a balance between revolution and evolution increase the success rate for startups? So please share with us the answer.
Yeah, so it's a great question. Revolution and evolution, the way I look at it is revolution is the disruption. So every startup founder, when they dream about doing something, they are thinking about the disruption that they will bring to the industry, to the space, um, creating this huge solution for a problem that's painful for a lot of people. And the way I look at evolution, it's an incremental growth over a period of time, and sort of, you're not galloping towards the end milestone, but you're running towards the milestone. So while every entrepreneur, I strongly believe, should dream about revolution, should think about disruption, should think about bringing in massive change, they should understand that success, the path to success is never linear, right? So you have to think about execution in a series of small steps. You have to prove success at different milestones, and then you will get closer to achieving the big milestone that you have been dreaming of. So I would say that when an entrepreneur jumps into doing a startup and solving a problem, they should get inspired by the revolution that they are going to cause. But as they go along the way, they have to think about, how do we evolve at every single step? How do we evolve towards that big audacious goal that we have set for?
That's great.
Yeah.
I
I was just gonna say, to me, this makes a lot of sense, and I'm probably not a history buff, and I think there's even some conspiracy theories out there. But what comes to my mind is this example of like the light bulb, right? I mean, it might be the most famous person connected to that is Thomas Edison. I've heard Tesla's name thrown around, Volta, different people, but like, there's only going to be one, inventor. Like, wow, this is great. This changed everything. And then there's these series of individuals who've made that light bulb better and better and better. There's also conspiracies around that as well, but that's not the point. The point is, you have this amazing invention that changes everything, and then a series of ways of making that better. Is that what I'm hearing in terms of startups? Like, it's going to be rare to be the person that comes up with this absolute game changer, but we can evolve along what's already existing.
Absolutely. So there are two things here that I'm saying. So one is, basically, I'll expand on what you said, which you hit the nail on its head. So you talked about Thomas Edison, but think about all the brilliant change makers in the world. And let's take software in particular. You're talking about Steve Jobs, you're talking about Jeff Bezos, you're talking about Bill Gates, you're talking about Elon Musk. um, and they, if you think about them, they have this incredible ability in some area, and that's so much powerful, that's so much incredible, that they are able to have that massive impact. But those kind of people are rare, right? So you have to be practical about what's your strength and how do you apply that strength to solve the problem that you have decided to go after. That is one aspect of it. Second is, we don't need to have that incredible ability to solve the problem. All of us have superpower. All of us have been blessed to have that superpower. We all have that in us. It's about recognizing them and applying that. And you need not do it in Steve Jobs way or Elon Musk way. You can do it in your way, and that, I'm talking about evolution. It's about applying it to solve day-to-day problem in a series of steps. You don't need to have that big bang success all at once. You can have small successful steps and then evolve to the big goal.
with the platform that you are launching, in which stage is the platform? I mean, is lumber revolutionizing something, or are you offering something that is evolving, or in which stage are you, or what is the balance there in the construction industry that you are in?
Yeah, so when you start a startup, you need to have, I call it as a deep mission. That is, like, you need to really believe in the mission deeply. You need to have, you need to have the passion that you are going to solve a massive problem. And with us at Lumber, we want to revolutionize the construction industry. When I've done few startups before, and they have all been in the marketing and sales landscape. And this time when I was doing my next startup, I was like, I want to solve a problem that feels real, an industry where real stuff is happening. And that's how I gravitate towards construction industry, because this is without construction there's nothing to look around, right? The offices that you are, the house that you live in, everyday work that you do, it's all somehow related to construction. So the industry is having a massive impact on a day-to-day basis on everybody's life. But how much do we care about how's the life of the people who are in the construction industry? What impact can we have in their day-to-day life? How can we make the industry more productive? And that's what really fueled my passion in going after this industry. And we are an early startup. We just got started. We've got a long way to go. But as I said, it all started with a big dream. And now it's about how do we take, again, what I said, what we are implementing at Lumber is how do we take a series of small steps towards that big goal. And September 12th, as I said, we are launching with core of our platform that will impact in small way, and then over the period of time we will evolve, we will do more releases that will
Mm-hmm.
help people revolutionize their back office in their companies and achieve profitability. We know that
Yep.
construction companies are working super hard and the margins are very very thin in this industry. And so helping them in small ways will go a long way in how this industry progresses.
Can we talk a little bit about some of these steps that you're referring to? I imagine that that's not the exact same path for every company or every industry, but I do imagine that there are some similarities. Where might some of these overlaps be, and what might those steps look like, for people who are either in the startup phase like Lumber, or hoping, having an idea and wanting to come to fruition. And particularly about the lumber industry, it's exciting to me because when we talk about this word evolution, I think there's been a lot of change, right? Particularly over these last few years. I mean, I know that the price of lumber had increased drastically. I think even the idea of manual laborers, generationally, we've kind of shifted away from that in terms of even having the skill set or the desire to be involved in an industry like construction. Even the pandemic and this idea of, do we even need to build as much because people are now tending to work more from home, and all of this stuff has happened so much in these last few years. So what has that process been like for you? And what are those some steps that we might be able to emulate elsewhere?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm surprised, Kim, that you know so much about the construction industry. You talked about few things that are absolutely relevant and what's going on in the industry. Like you talked about generational shift. So we are seeing that a lot of folks who started the company, they are now handing over the baton to the next generation, and the next generation is coming into the industry and saying, "What's this mess here, right? Why are we still in the primitive stages of automation?" So that's happened. With the pandemic also was really tough for the construction industry. We all know that right now the occupancy of the offices is all-time low, and construction companies are struggling with that when it comes to commercial construction. Just the other day somebody said the growth in warehouses has been much higher than the offices, right? So really pandemic transformed a few things along the way, so that has had an impact. And then you don't have people aspiring to becoming a plumber, right? So the labor pool is shrinking, and there's need to have more automation, and people who are in the industry, there's impetus on them getting trained to become high skilled laborers in this industry. So all of that change, you're bang on, right? And so that's where the need for a new solution to come in forefront. But while before I go into specifics in the construction industry and how lumber we are going, let me answer it in a more generic way, in terms of the experiences that I gathered from the previous startups, and how entrepreneurs can leverage that, how we can apply. So I'll go back to the one of the term that we used right at the beginning of the show, which is growth hacking. And so let me talk about that. Initially, when you start a startup, it's very, very important for every founder to think like a growth hacker. And now let's look in what does the growth hacker term means. So the foundational element of growth hacking is being experimental. It's and being experimental means letting data guide you the path. Don't use your intuition, right? It's important to have intuitions, but it's important to let do experiments, see the data that comes out of experiments, and letting that guide you. The way the growth hackers look at the situation is, failure is not actually a failure. Failure is data. Because you fail, you understand why you failed, what led to the failure, you get that in form of a data, and let that help you with your next path,
Yeah.
with your
Like
next step.
science. Isn't it attributed to Edison too? Like I didn't fail 1,000 times. I learned 1,000 ways that didn't work, or something like that. I don't remember. Yeah.
Absolutely, right. And it's a difficult mindset, Kim. It's difficult, it's very easy for us humans to have that disappointing emotion when we fail, right? And it does take the spirits down. But that's why I'm saying that the founders need to consciously adopt that growth hacker attitude, which is, I'm not failing, I'm learning, right? It's the data that'll help me along the way. So being experimental is important. And then as you are a founder, as you are a CEO, as you are a management team of the startup, it's important to inculcate that attitude in the rest of the organization. And it's very important because it's not just enough that you are an experimental guy, or gal. It's important that everybody in the organization rally around experiments. Everybody then collaborate on a regular basis, sharing data from those experiments that they have done. And then I'll go a little bit deeper. Experiments, what does experiments mean? Experiment will start with customer persona. What kind of persona we are going after, what kind of segments we are going after, and then teeing up experiments with each segment, right? How do we go about contacting people in that segment? How do we establish what works for that segment? What's resonating? What value proposition is resonating with that particular segment? And not resting, keep doing experiments till you hit upon a formula. Because once you establish the formula, then it becomes a rinse and repeat to scale, right? Because you're repeating the same thing, you and scaling it, because you have already learned through your experiment what works, right? What is working, you're repeating, right? So experimental is important. Then few other terms as a growth hacker you should be aware of is grassroots marketing. When you start a company, you don't have big budgets to spend on ad campaigns, on display ad, and all of that. So you have to really figure out, how do i how do I really leverage grassroots tactics, grassroots emotions? So which means you're actually going out in the field, working with your early design partners, early prospects, trying to establish a small community. Initially it will start small, but then it'll grow, right? Establishing community and working your way upwards, right? So a lot of community, leveraging a lot of community work, leveraging a lot of social media work, um, playing up the emotion that you're a small company, you need all the support. Founders should be absolutely selfish in accepting help, right? So that's the motion with the grassroots marketing. The other term that I will use is guerrilla marketing, which is, because you're small, you have to think about out of the box tactics that can help you get the initial success. And as an example of what I mean by guerrilla marketing is, let's say you cannot go to this big conference where a lot of your prospects are gathering. You cannot spend the money. But can you go to the Starbucks that's in front of the conference and basically establish a relationship with the Starbucks owner and say that whoever comes in with the badge, the coffee is on me, and and uh, and while they are sipping the coffee, you go and introduce yourself and say that, hey, I'm looking for some initial insight, feedback. Can I have a 5 minutes conversation with you? Right. So that's the out of the box tactics, guerrilla stuff. That's
We're
important.
gonna have a few more conversations about this guerrilla tactics. I think we can have a whole nother show on that.
Well, absolutely. And I'm super passionate about, like, as I said, like, done so many mistakes in my previous startups. I've learned so much that I've now got, 10 pages documents on the guerrilla tactics that one could be using.
I
So,
love it.
so yeah, so that's how I would appeal to all the folks who are either thinking about doing a startup or are in the early stages of startup, is be that growth hacker, think about experiments, line up your grassroots tactics, think about guerrilla tactics, which are difficult. Guerrilla tactics are not easy to think about. So you have to really push yourself. You have to get the team in an offsite, hit the whiteboard hard in saying, what can we do? How can we do this amazing stuff? Right. So
All right.
I'll stop there. I've said
No,
about.
don't stop. Well, actually, let's join these two. Can we develop a bit more examples of how you've applied those three elements to lumber? Like, what has the experimentation looked like at lumber? What has the grassroots efforts and, of course, the guerrilla marketing efforts look like as well?
Yes, and I was also thinking that, for example, lumber that provides this service to in the construction industry. I'm thinking that maybe, I don't know, you will share, starting with house construction and then maybe 3D printing, or and maybe there are companies who are having constructions in the sea. So there are sub verticals that you can reach, but there must be steps, and that's how you revolutionize, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I will share about how I applied those to lumber so far. Um, in again, in a generic way, I again say that because we are doing the big launch on September 12th. I cannot say a lot of things, but I'll give you a few ideas. So if you think about construction, there is commercial, there is residential, and then there is infrastructure, which is government work, right? So first thing to recognize, I talked about looking at the customer persona in a deep way, and line up experiments for that. So first thing is to recognize that there are three different sectors. You cannot treat all the construction companies same. You have to recognize that commercial construction companies are different than residential, multi-residential, who are building multi-complexes. And then the government is altogether a different ball game, right? And so the challenges that each of the construction companies in each of these areas face is different. So first is to recognize that, then go have conversation with as many construction companies as possible, because as I said, don't rely on your intuition, right? All of us have had interaction with construction companies in our past life in some ways. We've all built houses, we've all modified houses, we have all maintained the houses, and we have worked with contractors. And so based on that, we would have found some ideas. But don't rest on that. Go out in the field and talk to folks. So for example, we have now talked to over 500 construction companies in commercial area. We've started saying that we will go after commercial first, and then we'll go after the other sectors. So we went really, really deep. We didn't hesitate in taking a flight or driving the car and going out to the actual sites to talk to the folks and understanding how it's going, right? And we are talking about contractors who could be doing drywall, who could be doing payments, who could be doing firearm protection. And it's fascinating to understand that every specialty within the commercial is different. And so now you are going into those specific use cases, understanding the problems that are there with specifically with that industry. If you take landscaping, for example, they are seasonal, right? During the peak season, they have to ramp up on workers. And when the season ends, they have to ramp down, right? So their challenges will be different from, let's say, drywall, where margins are thin, versus electric or plumbing, where they have higher margins. So these are the nuances where you can only understand when you go deep, right? I did not come from the construction background, but today I feel like I can have a conversation, deep conversation with any construction company because I
I love it.
understand these nuances. And so that is one. And then second is I talked about grassroots tactics. We are now working with so many associations that where the construction companies um, are members, and going to actual smaller associations, not relying on the big national and state associations, but going even deeper to figure out how can we establish a community feeling with the construction company. So a lot of things that I talked about as a growth hacker, we are applying on lumber. And based on what we are hearing, we have now started producing relevant content on our website, on our social media page. So you can see, this year you can truly see us experimenting and growth hacking, hustling uh, to get more deeper with the community.
I think that's great. We're coming to the final few minutes of the show. I cannot believe we're already here already. It's been really
Wow.
great.
Yeah, it feels long time. I've been,
I
a short
know
time, in fact, but
time flies when you're having fun. I think my final question for you, Shreesha, will be wrapped around this fearlessness that I sense from you. Like I don't know if it's part of your innate personality, if it's something that has, evolved within you as time has passed and experience has passed. But what's your approach to talking to 500 companies? I mean, I think that a lot of people will be like, oh, I can't do that. Like, that's embarrassing. It's not going to be allowed. They're going to say no anyway. And maybe creating all of these like blockers that aren't even real. So, what is your words of wisdom or your encouragement or even tactics that you use to sort of break through? How did you reach out to these 500 companies? I mean, how did you even select which ones? And once you did, how did the conversation start? Do you literally just hop in your car, knock on a door? I mean, what are some of the tactics that you utilize, and how can you encourage people to follow suit?
Yeah, no, again, Kim, I really like the word you used, fearless. Um, and I'll tell you, my upbringing was far from fearless. I was always told by my parents that every step you take, you think 10 times. And so all that changed when I went to the first startup where I worked. There, the energy just captivated me, and I felt like I belong here. And then over a period, we talked about revolution, evolution. It was an evolution with me, right? The fearlessness evolved over a period of time. Initially it started like, hey, I don't think I can think about a new idea, but I can work hard for somebody else's idea, but I belong to a startup. That evolved to, hey, I think I may not come up with an idea, but I can contribute to the idea. And then that evolved to, hey, I can think about an idea myself. And that evolved to, hey, I can think about a big idea. So the previous steps, it was about an idea, but this time with lumber, it was, I want to go after a big idea, I want to go after a massive industry, right? And there's no worry, there is no worry about failing, there is no shame in failing, right? But the everyday you live big, right? You because you're going after a big problem, right? And you have rallied a group of people to co-believe in the idea, in the dream. And that's why you find it fulfilling, right? So So the fearless, again, I want to emphasize, evolved over a period of time. So my biggest advisor to all the startup aspirants or people who are thinking about startup is that while you're thinking about big idea, don't be afraid to take the first step, right? So don't be stuck in analysis paralysis where you're saying, I have this big idea or I have this idea and I have to validate it with 100 people before I start believing in the idea, right? Your whatever ideas you start with, it will always evolve, and you will have to evolve it. You will have to adapt it to the changing environment. A lot of the ideas, your idea was based on few assumptions that you had in the beginning of the journey, and those assumptions will be challenged, those assumptions will change, and so that's the reason why your idea needs to evolve. So never be afraid to take the first step, and once you plunge in into the whole thing, leverage failure as much as possible. Don't shy away from experimenting because you're worried that you will fail.
I love it. Thank you very much for your fearlessness, for your contribution, for your words of wisdom. Of course, all the steps that you're taking. I think these very practical steps that current entrepreneurs, startup leaders, and aspiring ones can certainly follow. Shreesha, we wish you and Lumber nothing but success as you again launch here on September 12th. We'll be looking out for it. And of course, you're welcome to come back anytime here on Dojo Live to keep us up to speed and what's been happening. And we'll talk about those guerrilla tactics as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Stick around just a minute as we go off air. But before we do, I'd like to remind our audience that they can join us on Monday at 10 o'clock a.m. Pacific right here on Dojo Live as we talk about Shreesha's show and Dan's show yesterday, give you our input, our opinions, and of course, introduce any shows that we've got coming up as well. Until then, stay safe, everyone.